Why doesn't modern healthcare protocol include yearly full-body CAT, MRI, or PET scans to really see what could be wrong with PPL? The title, basically. I recently had a friend diagnosed with multiple metastatic tumors everywhere in his body that were asymptomatic until it was far too late. Now he's been given 3 months to live. Doctors say it could have been there a long time, growing and spreading. Why don't we just do routine full-body scans of everyone, every year? You would think insurance companies would be on board with paying for it. Because think of all the tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars that could be saved years down the line trying to save your life once disease is too far gone. Cost. The equipment and personnel needed to conduct such regular scans is prohibitive. A lot of people are talking about the machines, but the radiologists trained to read these scans are highly paid professionals. Time. To conduct full-body scans of every type would be prohibitive. The scans you mentioned aren't like X-rays, they're not instantaneous. They take time to conduct properly. Lack of personnel. We would need a massive influx of both techs to conduct the scans and radiologists to read them to handle the number of scans you're suggesting, and it would take decades to ramp up to a point where we have enough of them to handle the kind of volume this would be introducing. Both the techs and radiologists require years of specialized training. Space. MRI, CAT, PET machines aren't small. If you needed enough of them to conduct these yearly scans, you either need to get rid of something in hospitals, labs currently, or create entirely new spaces to house them. This again adds to cost. It's more likely to result in false positives and invasive exploratory procedures than real positives. Scans aren't always binary, i.e. that's cancer, that's not. Many times there are areas that require further exploration. You might have to do more imaging focused on a single area, or a biopsy or other test. In short, the chance that it might catch something isn't worth the cost in money, time, false positives. Unfortunately for your friend, the best indicators we have right now are symptoms, family history, and screening tests based on demographics. Hopefully in the future, some or all of these barriers will be removed, and something like what you're suggesting will be possible rather than prohibitive. I'm sorry about your friend. Others have mentioned radiation and cost. Another problem is that many diagnostic tests have a false positive rate. Let's say that there is a disease that only occurs in 1% of people. And you have a test that has a 2% false positive rate, which would be a pretty good test. Run 10,000 people through those tests, and you find 100 people with a disease and another 200 that you think have the disease but actually don't. So anybody who gets a positive test only has a 1/3 chance of it being a real positive test. The biggest issue with this approach is that we would probably cause harm. I'll give you an example. Let's say someone comes into the emergency room with a headache that sounds pretty benign, and as part of their evaluation they get a CT angiogram of the head, which uses contrast dye to look at the blood vessels in the neck and brain. This is sometimes used in the evaluation of a bad headache to look for a leaking brain aneurysm. When used appropriately, it can be helpful. Let's say this hypothetical patient actually was just in caffeine withdrawal, which causes headache, but got the CT angiogram anyway. The angiogram revealed a tiny, 1 mm aneurysm in a blood vessel. Neurosurgeons will tell you that small asymptomatic aneurysms like this do not need to be intervened upon, and the preferred treatment, usually coiling or clipping the aneurysm, is not without risks. However, because of the medical legal climate in the USA, many neurosurgeons will say, well, I can't prove that this patient's headache is not from the aneurysm, even though it's small, and I don't want to get sued for not doing something, so I'm going to coil it. Coiling is a pretty safe procedure, but a non-zero percentage of these patients will suffer complications most seriously, poking a hole in the aneurysm by accident and causing a brain hemorrhage. Would we catch some cancers early? Yes. Would we also go looking to fix things that don't need to be fixed, and cause harm to patients? Also yes. Former MRI tech here. First off, sorry about your friend. Unfortunately, there's not really a way for all that to work. So a few things here. MRI is out because it takes about 30 to 45 minutes to MRI one part of the body. You would be there for days just trying to get your body MRI'd. Hand, wrist, forearm, elbow, humerus, shoulder. That's 6 exams, just on one side of the body, 30 minutes each. Not to mention you need to be completely still the length of the MRI. Then you need radiologists to read these things. There's not enough radiologists in the country to read all those studies. Furthermore, all that money you claim the insurance company would make? How? It costs thousands of dollars for an exam, and you think insurance will just pay all that? You'd spend hundreds of millions annually to find nothing wrong with people. CTs and PET just give off too much radiation to be done every year. The main problem with full body scans isn't the cost of the procedure or the radiation, EMO. The main problem is the serious risk of false positives. Everyone has wonky bits of their bodies. Maybe it's a mole or birthmark that could look pre-cancerous. Maybe it's a shadow on a MRI in your lung. Maybe it's something else that could look scary, but isn't giving you any problems and never will. Once you see it though, you can't unsee it. That usually means that doctors run tests for something that wasn't bothering you and probably would never bother you. While these tests likely have a relatively low risk, that risk adds up, and nothing adds up faster than the risk of a false positive. Oh shit, that shadow might be scary. Let's do some tests. Those tests are inconclusive or might be a bit off. Now you have an option. There's a small chance that it's dangerous. Do you want removed even if there's a risk of something bad happening? Way too many people say yes to situations like that, and on a population level that creates a significant amount of harm. You'll find many incidentalomas that would never become clinically significant, but would incur recommendations for additional imaging or biopsies, leading to complications that could have been entirely avoided in healthy people. You will also find many things for which we don't know the significance but now may need to follow up with more imaging. CT, MRI, PET scans are not magical tools that can detect all abnormalities or cancers. Early cancers including colon, gastric, prostate cancer may commonly be entirely undetectable by CT, MRI, PET. Not to mention with MRI you need to get even more specific, e.g. prostate MRI requires a different coil and entirely different sequences from an MRI of a different part of the body. There seems to be a common misunderstanding among lay people that if a cancer wasn't called on a CT, MRI, then it was a miss without understanding that CT, MRI, PET have their own significant limitations in detecting certain pathologies, and that some cancers may be entirely undetectable by CT (Mr. imaging. Additionally, different pathologies require different modalities. Early breast cancer detection is most sensitive through mammography and is terrible by CT. Early bone metastasis can sometimes be only seen on MRI and completely invisible by CT. Certain bone tumors are better assessed by radiographs or CT than MRI, etc. Diagnostic imaging volumes are already exploding, and the current volume of radiologists are already insufficient to read all current studies, i.e. the current radiologist job market is amazing because there are too many exams everywhere. Adding a full body scan to everyone would lead to volumes where even if every single med student became a radiologist, we would still not have enough. Not to mention, exploding healthcare costs.